Welcome back to the Colorblind Architect Podcast. I'm your host, David, and today I want to talk a little bit about the Gadsden flag and how I've been seeing a lot more of them lately, and I'm loving it. I'm loving seeing so many people driving around with their Gadsden flags flying, "Don't tread on me." And maybe that's just here where I live, but I will say I am very happy to see that there are people standing up and saying, no, I will not be treated like a rat in a cage. I am a free American. And so, why does this come up? Well, one of the things that happens in Christianity, and for that matter, in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, of which I'm a member, there's this tendency of the membership to be very docile. Christians many times are very obedient to laws. We strive to be good citizens, and part of that is, in the Bible, Jesus, when he's asked by the Pharisee, well, he was asked by the Pharisees in order to try to catch him. They were trying to catch him in a situation where he would accidentally admit to, not paying taxes or something. And so they show they say, is it lawful to pay taxes to Caesar? And Jesus's response was to say, okay, well, show me a coin. And then he says, whose image is on the coin? And then the Pharisees respond, well, Julius Caesar. And he's like, well, render unto Caesar that which is Caesar, and render unto God that which is God. Now, the implication there, and the common interpretation, is that as Christians, we believe first and foremost in abiding by God's law, but we also have a very strong belief in abiding by the laws of the land. The laws of the land are typically good. In most situations, it is good to be law-abiding. For example, there's laws against murder. Well, yeah, that's definitely a good law to obey. Yeah. Laws about paying taxes. Yeah, I'm fine with that, because you know what? We do have some pretty nice roads in this country. I love the fact that we've got interstates spanning the entire country, and we can go at 80 miles per hour here in Utah on the freeways. I think it's wonderful. We have the best military on the planet. Well, you know what? That costs money. So yeah, there's a lot of reasons to really appreciate the value of paying taxes. Now, do I think taxes are at the right level? No, I think they could be lower, because I think there's also a ton of government waste. But am I gonna not pay taxes because I think they're too high? Well, not so long as I feel like I have just representation. So herein lies the problem. Is it lawful under God to obey unjust laws? So here's the challenge. And I think a lot of Christians tend to be too quick to just automatically obey laws regardless. And the reason is because it's really hard to tell the difference sometimes between a just law and an unjust law. And sometimes you just got to err on the side of, you know what, I'm going to obey the law because I believe in being subject to the laws of the land. I think this is a very sensible approach, and I think it's one of the reasons why I think you'll find most Christians are actually pretty good people. They try their hardest to really be good. And yeah, they're not perfect. You're going to find plenty of Christians who are total a-holes. So, where does this get us? The reason why I talk about this is because when it comes down to it, if you're a Christian in 1930s, early 1940s Germany, well, the law of the land is being dictated by Hitler. Okay. Well, if Hitler's telling you to turn in your neighbor, your friend who's a Jew, and you have a sneaking suspicion that it's not for a commendation, you have a sneaking suspicion that maybe Hitler doesn't have the best plans for your neighbor. If you hid your Jewish neighbor in your attic to keep them safe from the Gestapo, you're disobeying the law of the land, right? So, are you being a good Christian at that point? Hell yes. Okay, it's such an easy choice in that situation because it's so clear that law of the land is in violation of God's law. So, when laws are in violation of God's law, then it is not only our right to disobey them, it is our duty to disobey them. Now, here's the problem. That can be a very slippery slope, and it can also be a very dangerous place to go. Because if you're not really careful in your analysis, and you're just saying in your mind, oh, well, I don't like this law, it must not be according to God's law, so I'm not going to obey this. There's people like that think about that with taxes. And they think, oh, well, these taxes are too high, so it's against God's law because God only asks for 10%, and because the taxes are more than 10%, then I shouldn't have to pay it. Well, there's people like that, and they refuse to pay the taxes based on that fact. Or it could be even something that's even more serious, where they vehemently disagree with the way that the government is spending money. The fact that the government gives money to organizations like Planned Parenthood, promoting abortion, the killing of babies, that is against God's law. And you could make an argument that taxes being used for that purpose are unjust in the eyes of God, and therefore you as a Christian should not have to pay them. Okay, well, that's a possibility. Absolutely. But I disagree. I don't think we should be not paying taxes because just because one part of the tax code is being used in order to fund things that we disagree with doesn't mean that we don't pay the entire tax, because we still need to provide for the things that we do believe in. Right? We do live in a representative republic, and so if we believe that we are choosing our representatives, and in the case that we might be in the minority in a particular area, like let's say you live in California and you are governed by morons, you might be a minority. You might be a Republican in California and feeling completely overwhelmed and just like these Democrats are doing evil. Okay, you might believe that. I still don't think it's right to not pay your taxes. So when is it right? Well, I'm not going to identify any particular law. There's no one particular law that I would say I can put a finger on it and say, yes, absolutely, that one you should disobey. And the reason why is because I can't say for certain that that's right for everybody. And I would need to put a lot of thought into it in my own life if I came across a law that I felt that I needed to disobey. And I think it's a personal choice. Each person needs to come to that decision on their own. But what I will say is that we definitely have justification. We have justification as Christians and a duty to engage in civil disobedience in the places where the Spirit directs. And I say the Holy Spirit directs. And look, if you're not a Christian, if you don't believe in the Holy Spirit and you don't believe in this stuff, okay, whatever. You probably turned off early in the video anyways. But for those of you still listening, here's the thing. It's something that as Christians we believe that we have the right to receive the Holy Spirit if we are living worthy. And that Holy Spirit, that Spirit of God that can dwell within us and can guide us and direct us, can sometimes tell us to disobey the laws of the land. Most of the time it will not. Let me be very clear about that. I think the vast majority of the time, the Holy Spirit will not constrain you to disobey the law. But there are rare exceptions. There are rare exceptions where it is fully appropriate to disobey the law. Like I said, the easiest example is if you're a Christian in 1930s, early 1940s Germany, and the Spirit tells you, no, I need to protect my Jewish neighbors. Yeah, that's absolutely something that the Holy Spirit would direct you to do. And so, I guess my point here is, are you sufficiently close to God? Now, I don't say this as somebody who thinks that I have that close connection with God. I do not feel that I am even as worthy as I should be. I feel wholly unworthy of it. And so, don't take this from me as though I feel like I'm some kind of, preacher or anything like that. I'm just an average guy who, I try to do my best. I try to be good. But man, I fall and I fail all the time. I make a ton of mistakes in my life. And so, to have the Spirit of God is not something that I would say you can just claim is always yours. You have to work really hard to stay in tune with the Spirit. And how you do that is kind of between you and God. You've got to work that out between you and God. I mean, all I know is that there are times when I feel the Holy Spirit press upon me, and there are times when I feel like the Holy Spirit's nowhere to be found. And I think that's normal. I think that's normal for a lot of people. But we need to be in tune with the Spirit. We need to have God with us. Because I'm telling you right now, man, if we are going into this great reset, if we're going into a Biden presidency, if we're going into as Kissinger's telling us that we need to do, of going back into China like full force, like, oh, head in hand, and saying, oh, we're sorry for Trump, we didn't mean it. Oh my God. If we do that, we are in deep, deep doo-doo. We are in a really dangerous place. And with this great reset, you know very well that Biden's going to be doing it, because all these politicians around the world who are proponents of the great reset, they're all putting Build Back Better on their signage, their websites and stuff, which was the same slogan that Joe Biden had, which apparently comes from the World Economic Forum and the Great Reset. Now, honestly, you would think that a bunch of supposedly elite, intelligent people meeting at Davos, Switzerland every year, you'd think they'd be able to come up with a better slogan than Build Back Better. I mean, it sounds like it was a slogan invented by some drunk hillbilly in West Virginia. Yeah, man, we gotta build back better. Yeah, we gotta build back better. I mean, it sounds like, yeah. Not to criticize hillbillies in West Virginia. I actually love hillbillies in West Virginia. I've spent a lot of time in West Virginia. It's a great place. All I can say is that linguistically, they're maybe not the most eloquent. Let's just put it that way. And the irony is that, Joe Biden's supposed to be this much more eloquent speaker than Donald Trump. And yet, Donald Trump has the slogan of Make America Great Again. Which actually has a good ring to it. It actually sounds good. But Build Back Better? I mean, seriously? Now, I digress. I mean, that's a little side point, but anyways, getting back to the point, we are moving into a period where we may have to consider acts of civil disobedience. We may have to consider very seriously, where is our line? Where is our line of obedience to the laws of the land relative to the laws of God? Could there be places where we have to choose for ourselves and vehemently disagree with the law of the land by abiding by God's law? In his final address to the people, to the Israelites, and if I remember correctly, for some reason my mind's blanking, but I'm pretty sure it was Joshua, or I think it was the prophet Joshua. Might have been the prophet Samuel. Anyways, the point is, he's giving his final address to the Israelite people, and at one point he says, I don't know what you other people are going to be doing, but as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. I sure hope that all of us Christians, and Jews and Muslims for that matter too, because we're all part of the same larger Abrahamic faith. I think we all need to come together and agree that as Christians, Jews, and Muslims, that we have the same God, the God of Abraham, and that we need to stand up for righteousness. We need to stand up for those things that brought about the modern marvels of the modern world. And specifically by that, I mean adherence to the laws of God, adherence to the principles of truth, We desperately need to make sure that our conviction in that faith is real. Because I'm telling you, man, it is going to be really dangerous. It's going to be really dangerous in the coming years. If the Great Reset comes about and we get this global socialist order in place, I'm telling you, the people of the Abrahamic faiths are going to be persecuted at an unprecedented scale. And it's going to be very dark times. I hope to God that that's not the case. I hope to God that we're going to get through this and this is going to be a slight little bump in the road, and that we're going to be all, happy and living in peace in short order once the pandemic is over. But regardless, it is our duty as followers of God to turn to God and have His Spirit with us. And with that, I leave you for another day. Again, I'm the Colorblind Architect. Thanks for joining me. Peace out.